Yo, what's going on, guys? I haven't posted on this channel or in general in a very long time, and I want to try to be a little more consistent this year. I think we're going to start with at least one video a week to myself, self goal. Nothing too crazy, not every day, not even multiple times a week, just once a week. And to share my thoughts. If it becomes I post more, that's good. But I want to talk about, I was reading my Bible today. I just want to share how God, he disciplines those he loves. And sometimes we'll have hardships. We'll have hardships. We'll have things we're struggling with, vices. We'll have habits, thoughts, feelings, all these things that we struggle with and wrestle with, the flesh that we wrestle with. And we could be, we could go to church every week. We could ourselves, we could do our devotions every day. We could study our Bibles, and we still have these things that we wrestle with. And it's a season of time of something we're really struggling to get out of. And we feel like as we read, sometimes, even myself, as I read the scriptures and study the word, I feel like I'm reading something that is administering to me in that very moment of time. And it's very, and it seems to hit the nail on the hammer. Is that how they say the saying, the nail on the hammer? Or the hammer on the nail, whichever way it goes. But every time, it's like for me, in the past, I used to be a heavy drinker, heavy partier. And then it dwindled back to, on and off quitting, a couple months, coming back on. And then it dwindled lower to, the recent past months, just casual, in the past year or so, just casual drinking, like occasional drink here, occasional drink there, if you meet up with friends here and there. But that's for me one thing that I've realized. I'm like, my life, my decision making and my clarity is just more clear without alcohol. And as I continue to make videos, there'll be other things I'll share and just put out there for you guys to learn from as well. So that way you guys can all see that there's other people out there with the same struggles, and the same decisions to be made. And sometimes in life, even if something is not as harmful, at the end of the day, even just a little bit of a drink, for me, I can't speak for you guys, it's just, I'm not as mentally clear as a sober-mindedness, as we all are. People drink to let loose and this and that. But I think just a lifestyle, when I was 8 to 13, 14, these young years old, I didn't need a drink to enjoy life. We can enjoy the little things. It could be a cold winter day outside. The sun can be hitting that perfect angle in your car to where when you get in, it's nice and warm, but you're enjoying the nice weather, the cool breeze outside, meditating on the word. And you don't need alcohol to do that, So it's just a lifestyle and reliving that lifestyle without those vices. Without me dwindling too much off track, though. But yeah, God definitely disciplines those he loves. So I was doing some reading today in Hebrews. I was reading Hebrews chapter 12. And I was just highlighting and marking some points. So let's see. I'm going to share this. This is from Hebrews chapter 12. I'm going to read verses 7 through, let's see. I'm going to read verses 7 through 11 to you guys. And this is from the New International Version. I have many versions, King James, New International. Right now, it's just, it's not Old English, so it's just easier for me to read and actually comprehend and compare it to the other versions. When I have multiple versions, I like to compare, but here it goes. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 7 through 11. Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as sons. For what son is not disciplined by his father? If you are not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are illegitimate children and not true sons. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us, and we respected them for it. how much more should we submit to the Father of our spirits and live? Our fathers disciplined us for a little while as they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good, that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. That's so deep. Especially that last verse, verse 11, no discipline seems pleasant at the time. So at the time of us in our thing, it's like, oh yeah, it's nice to do whatever I want. It's nice to have a drink with my buddies and do this and that. But painful because, after, we're done hanging out and we're trying to, if you have a goal to live a certain lifestyle and you're not adhering to what you set for yourself, it's going to be painful because you're thinking in the back of your mind like, man, I'm letting myself down. But later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Why is that? Because over time, once we've learned the certain thing that we need to be disciplined toward, and we endure those lessons, we wrestle with those things, we wrestle with the flesh. And as we enter into that state of just realigning ourselves with what is holy, that's the peace that comes upon. That's the righteousness and everything, because we're living attuned to what we know God needs us to do and wants us to do. So, that was some very inspiring words of motivation and inspiration, as well as a reminder that it's sometimes good that, we got to remember and remind ourselves that in this discipline itself, that means God is strengthening us. God is working with us. You don't want a leisurely life of pleasure and towards just, discipline is a thoughtless thing that, you don't even really have in your life. It's good to have discipline. It's good to have structure, whether that's going to the gym, whether that's, waking up early, reading, and all these things are things I now do, which I didn't do before. I used to not. I didn't wake up at I like to wake up early, like between 4:30 to 5:30, sometimes at the latest, and just get in the gym early. It feels fresh, I wake up, brush my teeth, drink some water, and just get out there on an empty stomach because I feel less sluggish. It's a good feeling. Do that. Come home. I'll read a chapter of my Bible. And if it's day, I go to work. I head off to work. But just setting up my morning that way, it definitely helps me appreciate gratitude for life and the little things and the big things. The little things as in waking up early, getting some fresh air, being able to go move my body, exercise in the gym. So these acts of discipline, they're very important. And us all, it can start small too, I wasn't always like this, and as I built my certain habits, as I continued to build and work on myself, it starts somewhere. So if you're the kind of person who always hits the snooze button on the alarm, and you move from hitting the snooze button to not hitting the snooze button, that's better than someone who, it's better to do something consistently long term. Say not hitting the snooze button, but you're waking up. You don't have to wake up that early, but you're waking up without sleeping in. That's better than waking up early for 3 days, but then you don't do it ever again ever since that. Basically set a standard that is achievable and then work from there. Don't, set your standards crazy high. That being said, set your standards high in other things like who you date, who you marry, things like that. But I mean, as far as when you're working in new goals, don't make it so extreme and crazy to where you got to know yourself, know what you're going to stick to. So try to stick to something. And discipline's a good thing. Us as humans, sometimes making in a new habit is hard, but challenge yourself. If it seems hard the first day you try it, tell yourself, I'm going to do this for a week and then stop after a week. But I guarantee you, after that week, you get used to it after the first 4 days. You're going to be like, well, I'm going to go a month. Okay, I'm going to go this time. I'm going to go this time. It feels better. And that being said, you're not going to slip here and there back into your old ways as far as, say, you know, for me, not going to the gym or skipping a day or skipping that, but the more consistently you keep fighting to become that new version of yourself, pick up those new habits, endure discipline, the easier it becomes. It's like, you know, if you've never ran a marathon before and then you run your first one, it might be hard, but every time you do it after that, it becomes easier and easier and easier. So yeah, life's a marathon, not a sprint. So it's all about the little things that make the big difference. So yeah, thank you for listening, for all those who watch. And yeah, I'll try to be more consistent with these kind of videos, sharing my thoughts on the scriptures I read and compare it to my own life, so that way you guys can as well with your own lives. And then yeah, if you ever have any thoughts, recommendations, and feelings, feel free to share. But don't feel obligated. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.